My guest today is a brilliant singer-songwriter for the band Big Big Train, whose new album Folklore just came out. I'd like to welcome David Longdon.
Doing all right?
Hey David, great to speak with you.
Hey Roy, thank you for wanting to do it.
You know, it's a long time interest for me to speak with you or anybody from the band. I'm a big fan.
Thank you for saying so.
So tell me sort of what's going on with you and with the band. I think there's been a lot of great support with the new album and a lot of press and good vibes. Well, tell me in your own words what's going on with the band right now and how you guys are experiencing everything.
We've released Folklore early on this year, and we've had really great reviews for that. I have to say the support that we've had from our fan base and the Prog community at large has been fantastic. You know, so there's been thankfully a lot of interest in it, which is good. So what's next for us is we are looking to secure a venue in which we will do live shows for next year, and we're also working on a companion album to Folklore, going to be released just probably about next April. It was going to be an EP, but we've got so much stuff that we're writing for this album. It is going to be an album. It's not going to be. It's going to be an album, not an EP. So it won't be. It's like a companion to Folklore. It's not the next Big Big Train album type of thing, but it's just stuff that it's unfinished business from Folklore that we'd like to get out there. So we're very busy at the moment.
Very cool. We won't have to wait too long for more music. So good news there. You know, if it's okay, I'd like to just get a little bit of your background a little bit.
All right. Well, I'll try and keep it brief. All my life I've been a musician really, and I've played in bands from being very, very young. Mainly, I started playing flute in bands when I was a young kid with my friends and things like that. So I played keyboards, and we got a piano in the corner of the room, but you couldn't really drag the piano around to anybody's house. So so I had to play the flute. So I did that for a while, and then I became a bass guitarist and a vocalist with some school friends, and we formed bands. Anyway, this went on. Bands went on. I eventually was in a band called the Gift Horse, and I managed to get a publishing deal. And as a result of the publishing deal, I met a guy called Gary Bromham, who passed on my details eventually, sort of years later, to Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks, who considered me as a replacement for Phil Collins when all that was going on with the Calling All Stations album. And then I made my own album called Wild River. That came out in 2004. At the same time that I became a father. And then I had a period where I was teaching music technology for a while to support the family, and I wanted to do more work musically because I'd always done so, and I read an article on the internet with Martin Alford, who was a keyboard player in IQ at that time. And so I called GEP Records, that's Giant Electric P Records, which is IQ's record label, and left a phone message for Martin, telling him pretty much what I just said to you, giving him a potted history in a few minutes. And what happened was he picked the phone up. He was in the office and he heard me talking, and we got speaking. And he said to me, "Well, he's actually considering leaving the music industry," which he went on to do. But he was going to do one final album, which was called The Old Road. And the deal was, he said to me, "Well, David, look, if you can sing these songs better than I can, you can. These are two songs on the album better than I can. They'll go on it. Your vocals will go on the album." So I went down to Orbit in Southampton and met Rob Aubrey there on that day. He was engineering Martin's album, and I did the vocals, and he must have liked them because they went on the album, I'm pleased to say. And that's how it kind of started, really. Rob met me, and he knew that Big Big Train were looking for a singer. And the only bit of Big Big Train I heard before joining them was a song called Summer's Lease, which had been released on as a part of a sampler, like a free CD that you get with a kind of whatever, a quarterly magazine or something like that, or a monthly magazine. And that's the first thing I heard by them. So when they sent me the audio stems to record I now know that they were parts of the same song. It's parts of the Under 4 Yard, but they sent them in little snippets. And Greg and Andy said, "Well, just do what you think you want to do with them." So I did. I heard them in sections of lead vocals and backing vocals, and that's how it kind of came to be. I sent them my audio stems back to them, and they liked them, and they invited me to join the band, and it's kind of gone on from strength to strength, really. So that's how it all started, though.
That's interesting with the Genesis story. I had heard that you were one of the names. I was going to ask you about that and see what the story there was. I found out about the band later. Being in the U.S., it's hard for us to find out about UK prog bands and stuff sometimes. It gets easier nowadays with the internet being what it is. But English Electric is where I got started with the band and then went backwards a little bit. To me, the albums like The Underfall Yard and even the EP Far Skies are brilliant. And I've come to find they're sort of classics in sort of the underground prog movement. But why do you think it took till now for really the band to sort of reach what I think is pretty good popularity among the prog community, more than it's been, I think?
Well, it took as long as it took, really, Roy. It was we would have liked it to have been sooner, because the Underfall Yard came out in 2009, but it goes as fast as these things go. And when we did the Underfall Yard, the deal was that with Greg and Andy and I was that they said, well, look, we're not making a lot of money doing this, so we may do this. We will do this album. It will come out. Well, there may be another if we can do it. But certainly the Underfall Yard will be made, and then we'd see how we went from there. So it wasn't like hey baby, join this fantastic band.
Right.
It was they needed a singer. I was looking for a band, so we were in the right place at the right time. So it's been gradual. When the good reviews started coming in, the good publicity from the Underfall Yard, that makes everybody kind of raise their game, because you feel confident that you're doing the right thing. So, and then the inclusion of people like guitarists, people like Dave Gregory, is a notable musician, and Nick DiVigilio on the drums. When you're working with people like that, the caliber of those musicians, it makes you raise your game as well. So it was a combination of us wanting to get better at what we do, and bear in mind, by the time we've got to Folklore, there's been an awful lot of development and music recorded and released. So it wasn't the fact that we were dragging our heels and not getting on with it. It's just the fact that it was we had to be in the right position for it to happen naturally, if you like, because it can only go as fast as it can go. That's the thing about it. You can't put these things out and people go, "Oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread." If it isn't, and hopefully we like to think that our music has a genuine appeal, which it certainly does, because it's all done on reality. There's no big money machine throwing money and thousands of dollars into Big Train. We do it ourselves, and we do it in conjunction with people like Jerry Ewing from Prog magazine and people like that who are kind of on board with what we do, and that's how it does it. It's real, and it takes time.
So moving forward then to when you did the English Electric albums, what do you remember about the writing and recording about that? And I think it sort of sounded like the next step, the evolution of the band rather, from Underfall Yard, and songs like East Coast Racer and things really came out sounding like very massive and impressive. Tell me about working on that album.
There were two albums, English Electric Part 1 and Part 2, and then we put them both together with extra tracks as Full Power. So when you talk about the English Electric recordings, in my mind, I view Full Power as the definitive article of it, all kind of collection of those recordings. We did it, let me see, the big thing about English Electric for me was it was... for my own journey within it, it was at that time when I was invited to contribute songs of my own into Big Train, which was it was a good way of working with it, because bear in mind, if it'd just been one writer, it's one person having to generate stuff, and progressive rock music takes time and care, and there's only so much time in a day. So between us, Greg and I can write quite a lot. So those for me, that was those recordings were me becoming a writer within Big Train alongside Greg, because on the Underfall Yard, that was kind of written before I'd arrived, so I came in at the tail end of the recording, so I busied myself doing the vocal arrangements. On Far Skies Deep Time, that's the EP in which Greg and I learned to write together. So on English Electric, I'm writing songs specifically for Big Train, and I'm co-writing with Greg, and I'm working on Big Train music as well, like Greg's songs also. So that was it. That's kind of the journey from my own point of view. With English Electric, what was different about it? I suppose by that time we were really gathering momentum as a band, and people were interested in us, and we got a lot of support. We were growing a really strong fan base, which we're very proud of, and they're called Passengers, and we have they have their own Big Train Facebook community group, and that helps propel and support what we do. So there's lots of things were happening. So it was a time. The English Electric Recordings, I think, were a fantastically ambitious thing when you see it all spread out. But we did it bit by bit. We split it into two halves and then added different things. It's almost like we go through periods where we like, for example, we're just doing it on Folklore now. Like I told you, we thought we were going to be putting out an EP, but no, it's going to be the next thing we do. It will be almost an album's worth. Well, so it will be an album's worth of material as a companion to the Folklore album. So that's how we go. Before we move on to the next, move on to the next album.
With Folklore, did you now feel that you had this momentum, and now there's pressure to make something that's really gonna take it to the next level? Did it change the approach? Did it change the timing that you put behind the writing or anything?
Let me see. No is a short answer to that. Because bear in mind, I suppose we are aware that because the English Electric Recordings were so successful, and it had been a long time since we'd had any studio recordings out, or an album certainly. We put an EP out called Wassail EP a little earlier before the gigs last summer, and so you never know how it can go. I mean, we could have released Folklore to mass indifference. Maybe that time spent away doing those gigs and preparing for the gigs could have, the scene could have changed, and we wouldn't have been as highly regarded as we are. So you never know. You never know with these things.
Right.
That's kind of part and parcel of it, really.
When you go through writing, especially with an album like Folklore, which is really based on specific stories, and how did you find the topics to write about, and which ones in your readings do you say, oh, this is a great one, this one would work for a song like Winky, or this one would work for a song like Brooklyn's? How do you disseminate what's good and what you want to write about?
Well, Greg and I usually have like we're doing now, like long kind of phone calls on Skype or whatever, or FaceTime, and we chat about stuff like pretty much like we're doing, and we discuss things. I mean, we've had one today. I mean, that's why I can tell you a little bit about the album thing I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. We tend to we have these obviously issues and circumstances present themselves as we're going through life. And we chat and we resolve them pretty much like anybody else would, really. We just say, right, okay, that's what we're going to do. But we're quite good at firing ideas off of each other, and often we find that we have very similar ideas when we'll go away, for example, and think about stuff, and we come back and we have quite similar similar visions about it, which is great, which means we're on the same page and we're going in the right direction.
Going back to, again, like a song like Winky, for example, which is one of my favorites on the album, really just great track, fun track. How does a song like that start? Is it the story? Is it the lyrics? Is it the opening sort of guitar part? How does it go from beginning to end and become a song?
And thank you for your kind words about Winky. Winky began Greg and I, we look at the internet and we read books, and to get anything that will kind of sort of think, anything that's kind of interesting, but a little bit unusual as well, preferably. And I read about Winky. I must have been surfing on the net one day or so, and I found the story, and I love the name for start, because it's quite a cute name, and it's when you consider what the bird did, what she did was incredibly heroic, but whether or not that was ever in Winky's brain, one will never know. But the heroism, she probably just wanted to get back to her loft where it's safe and warm, but in doing so, she was able to save the lives of the crew. So once you've got a story, and it was such a good story. Winky to me was just absolutely irresistible. So on one of our marathon phone calls, I explained the story. I told the story of Winky to Greg, and he said, "Oh, we've got to do it. We've got to do that." So I went away and I wrote it. And when I'm writing the music, in that case, in the case of Winky, you're telling a story, because it's very much like an action adventure piece of music, and to be honest, it harks back to things like the Battle of Epping Forest and the Return of the Giant Hogweed, and those sorts of tracks where a story is being told. There's a lot of words in Winky, and they're all factual. They are literally recounting the story of what actually happened. So the job of the music with Winky was to illustrate what was happening in the story. For example, there's a section called the North Sea, and there's a bit where the music sounds as though it's sloshing around, in this sort of a tempestuous, tumbling ocean. And there's another bit where Winky eventually takes to the sky, and it goes into 6/8, and the flute motif sounds like, to my ear, sounds like this little bird amidst all of this taking off. So it's just kind of painting with music, sounds, and rhythms. Certain things suit certain parts of the story. And that's what it was. It was really cinematic storytelling, I'd say, Roy.
Yeah, I think when you hear the song and you follow the words along and you sort of immerse yourself in it, exactly what you're saying comes across. It all takes you to this place where you're visualizing what the story's trying to say, and it does very well. One of the other things that is impeccable on the album are the string arrangements and some of the openings. The opening of Folklore right away sets the tone for the whole album. At what point are you working on the string arrangements? Are those added on later? Are they while you're writing the actual song? And how much goes into that part?
Well, obviously a lot of thought. Kind of each song they have to work well as an ensemble of songs within themselves as the running order of an album. But ideally, they should also work well individually too. They should be able to stand alone. And the string introduction to Folklore really was it was almost like the string parts from the chorus. So I wrote strings in the chorus. So it's there we go, do, do, do. It's those chords. It's just me taking the theme of the chorus and playing it on. I played it on a synthesizer to demo it, and then Rachel came, and then she with her string quartet and recorded the string parts that you hear on the front there. So it's just the idea came from the chorus. It's a theme taken from the chorus, but because it starts off the track in isolation, just the swell of those strings. I wanted it to sound. It sounds a bit crazy here, Roy. I'm going to tell you. I wanted it to sound like England when it starts up. That kind of almost like a real lump in the throat kind of sense of home and where we're from. And especially when the brass gets to it as well halfway through, it's that's what I wanted it to sound like. I wanted it to sound pastoral.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Another song closing the album, "Telling the Bees," is sort of a different vibe than a lot of the other songs with the acoustic, and it's kind of a somber story, right? But very uplifting musically. You don't really realize maybe the sadness in it, but it's sort of a happy kind of ending. Talk about writing that song and wanting to close the album with it.
Okay, well, "Telling the Bees" was written in the October of 2014, and through that time I was going through quite a particularly rough time in my life, and I wrote it on a 12-string guitar, and it's capoed up, and the tuning is D-A-D-G-A-D. That's a dadgad tuning, and This riff came out, and it was very, very simple, and I started singing it. And I liked the idea of the storytelling with Bees, and I liked the idea of it being a folklore tradition where it's handed down, and it very much echoed the lyrics in the song Folklore, the idea of passing it on from generation down to generation, these traditional things. And "Telling the Bees" is one of those things. And yes, it starts off with a young boy discovering that his father's not going to come back from the war, and what happens is he becomes the beekeeper. And throughout the song, he grows up, and he meets this girl called Jenny. They get married, and they have a son. and that's all it is. It's just the story of it carrying on. And it was just, although it's a sad start, it, like you say, it's a bittersweet song. It's there is sadness in there, but there's also joy, and there's that hints in that in the middle section as well. But I wanted it to soar when it hit the middle section with the slide guitar solo, which is beautifully played by Dave Gregory. I wanted it to really kind of soar at that point. And sometimes, it doesn't have to be all mellotrons, and it doesn't have to be capes, time signatures. I'm more than happy to express myself in 4/4. But as my friend once said to me, you want to express yourself in 7/16, you've probably been drinking too much coffee.
That's great. I love finding out some of these stories with the songs and everything. And I have to tell you, the first time I heard the album, I just enjoyed it so much, and I probably listened to it repeatedly from beginning to end for an entire weekend. And I think it's just one of the best albums to come out this year. I really do.
Well, actually, I don't think I answered your question properly a little while back. You said, did we feel any sort of pressure to in a sense? Well, that's the way I took it. When we're making Folklore, it didn't feel like there was any. We were aware that we were making the follow-up to the English Electric recordings that have been well received, but we did it in the spirit of we will do what we do. And because in the last summer, we played gigs in London, and that really galvanised the spirit of the band. The making of the Stone and Steel DVD rather, or Blu-ray rather, was a very empowering thing for us. So doing those gigs was a cherry on the cake, and the whole of Folklore was recorded after those gigs last summer. So it was pretty much written and made in a very short time. But because everybody within the band had I'd realised that we all know our place, if you like, on our patch of the band, what we have to do in order to make sure that we all work efficiently when we're making this stuff. And that's why it was kind of it was a lovely thing to make. It was a good album to make. It was a positive album to make, and it was I wouldn't say it's an easy thing to make, because there's lots of craftsmanship within it, and deciding how these things are going to be presented. But by and large, we learned so much with doing the gigs and having recorded English Electric, and prior to that having done Fast Skies, and then suddenly all this Folklore to me sounds like everything Big Train know about making an album in a very condensed single album, and that's what it felt like. And we like the album. We're very proud of it, and it's we're very pleased with the way it sounds.
I think all the fans are, for sure. David, thank you so much for taking a few minutes. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you, and we'll keep supporting the band. We're big fans here.
Thank you, Roy. Take care. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks to David for the interview. We're going to close with the title track off of the new album Folklore. For upcoming news and interviews, please check theprogreport.com, follow us on Facebook, at The Prog Report on Twitter, or download the podcast on iTunes. Thanks.
Fireside flickering flames make the shadows die. Hey, so we go, we pass it on, we hand it down. We tell our tales, we sing our songs while we have breath left in our lungs. Hey ho, so we go, we pass it on, we hand it down. We pass it on down to the young from the old. We feel it deep down in the soul. Hey ho, so we go, we pass it on, we hand it down. Sometimes truth hides beside the lies. Grist to the mill, fuel to our fire. Hey, oh, so music of the world is scored. Our satellites, they span the globe. Lo, our story shall be told. I speak with integrity.